Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Tyagarajan, the head of the Department of Sanskrit, Presidency College, Chennai. In a broad subject, Indian culture, there is a paper called Indian Aesthetics and Fine Arts. And today, we are going to have the module, the place of Kavya Prakasha and Sahitya Darpana. Mammata is the author of Kavya Prakasha and Sri Vishwanatha is the author for Sahitya Darpana. Both of them happen to be later writers, yet they have described very well about the many components of a poetry. Of course, there were poeticians in the field earlier to them, but these two happen to be uniquely welcomed by all the scholars because they have condensed and comprehended also some factors which are very important with regard to poetics. And Sahitya Darpana completely covers the all regions of the poetry, and Kavya Prakasha stands foremost to stamp its own stand with regard to poetics. Now, we shall see in this module the importance of Kavya Prakasha, the contents of Kavya Prakasha, in the same way the importance of Sahitya Darpana and the theme of Sahitya Darpana today. In the history of Kavya Shastra, Mammata Bhatta, as I told you, the author who lived during 1090 and 1060 AD, is a luminous star, remembered with respect and adoration. The general belief is that the study of Kavya Shastra would not be complete without the study of Kavya Prakasha. The studies on Kavya Shastra from Bharata to Bhoja are beautifully explained in Kavya Prakasha. He has written a work called Sapna Vichara also. See, while dealing with the purpose of a Kavya, Mammata says, Sabda and Artha without dosha possessing guna and decorated with alankaras is a Kavya. It deals with the purpose of Kavya. How? In this way, Sabdartau, Adoshau, Sagunau, etc. According to it, Kavya brings fame and wealth. Kavyam, Yashashe, Arthakrite, Sivetaracharaye, Vyavaharavide, Sadhya Paranirvritaye, Kanta Sammitataya, Upadesha Yuje. That is the exact statement of Mammata. It gives the sense of life in the world, forbids everything unpleasant to the student, listener and spectator, offers supreme pleasure along with learning, and gives advice on do's and don'ts like a loving wife. Kanta Sammitataya. Apart from fame and wealth, it gives instructions on appropriate behavior in social life, that is Vyavaharavide, with different types of people. The most important benefit is the enjoyment of rasa, which is the inspired stage of ultimate pleasure, untouched by sensuousness. Kavya Prakasha talks about Sahridayas, instructs Sahridayas. Keeping aloof the Shabda Pramana, that is Vedas, etc., with the aid of the secondary aspect of Shabda and Artha, that is Guni Bhava, we say, and importance of the process of suggestion, that is Vyajana, the Sahridayas are given advices through the profound descriptive style of the proficient poet to follow Rama and keep away from Ravana. What is the Karana of Kavya? According to Kavya Prakasha, the Karana or the cause for the evolution of a Kavya is combination of firstly the natural intellectual power of the poet, secondly the faculty attained through the study of Shastras on both spiritual and world matters, and lastly the training under the direction of the Guru, well versed in the style of composition of Kavya and its critical study. The cultural basis of poetic talents is the force of intellectual ingenuity, Pratibha. Nava Nava Unmesha Shalini Pratibha. At every time, something new springs out from the mind of the poet. Something artistic, which is interesting, that comes out at every moment. That's why that is called as Pratibha, otherwise called as genius in English, without which Kavya would not take shape. And even if produced in any other manner, it would remain a mockery. And Vyutpatti and Abhyasa. The other requirement is knowledge, that is Vyutpatti, acquired through exhaustive studies. One should have a thorough understanding about the mundane world. He should also be conversant with the principles of prosody, grammar, vocabulary, arts, warfare, works of other great poets, as also the Itihasas. The intellectual faculty and the knowledge thus accrue along with the training, that is Abhyasa, under the guidance and advice of those who are proficient in making and revising slokas. All these, that is Kavya Hetu, Pratibha, Vyutpatti and Abhyasa in combination cause the construction and development of Kavya. Kavya Lakshana. Sabdartha, divide of dosha, combined with guna, normally with alankara, and sometimes without alankara also, is Kavya. Sabda and artha with alankara should be present throughout, but in certain contexts, it would explicitly remain as understood in the case of Vyangya and Rasadi. Rasadi refers to Rasa, Bhava, etc. And there too, the Kavya aspects remains unaffected. When Vyangyartha, that is suggested meaning, is more graceful than the Vachyartha, that is verbal meaning, the primary meaning, the Kavya assumes a superiority. These are called Dhvani Kavyas. The grammarians use the word Dhvani to denote Vyangya, suggestion primarily of spota nature. Then in the course of time, critics accepted them and started terming such Shabda and Artha as Dhvani, which rendered Vachyartha secondary and potential enough to express Vyangyartha. Mammata's argument is that the word Dhvani was known to grammarians. Dhvanivadins like Anandavardhana started using that word in Kavya. His idea is Dhvanyanti spotam vyankti idi dhvani, whereby dhvani means words which express spota. In Patanjali's Mahabhashya, dhvani is shabda. Dhvani is the word expressing Vyangya, which is spota rupa, in the form of spota. Spota is obtained by the audible syllable or dhvani. When Vyangyartha is secondary to Vachyartha, it is Gunibhuta Vyangya. The Kavya written prominently with the Gunibhuta is Madhyama. And the total absence of Vyangyartha makes the Kavya Adhama. So it is understood that when the Vyangyartha is prominent, then it is called Dhvani Kavya, which is called as Uttama Kavya. Now Vachaka, Lakshana and Vyangyartha, Vyanjaka are the three types of words used in Kavya. These also carry the meanings Vachya, Lakshya and Vyangya in the respective order. There is also a fourth kind, Tatparya, signification, that is the intention of the poet. Vachaka is the real technical meaning expressed as Abhidha. Abhidha is the technical meaning in relation to the jati or group classification. Abhidha is the main meaning. The process that takes place in the Sabda to make this Artha comprehensible is Abhida Shakti, the power of the word. The word force by virtue of which another meaning is aimed at, and that one which is superimposed is Lakshana. It happens by any particular signification of the Mukhyartha, that is important meaning, or connected to the Mukhyartha, or by Rudi, the popular meaning. The Rudi Lakshana has no Vigya aspect, but it indicates the purpose, Prayojana, that is Vigya. The purpose in Lakshana can be comprehended only through the Vyanjana process. It may either be abstruse or clear. In the context of Lakshana, this would be of three types: Abhyanga Lakshana, Guda Vivigya, and Aguda Vyangya. Then the word with the Lakshana is called Lakshanika. The Prayojana, that is the purpose aspect, is Vyangya in it. So the process of its comprehension is Vyanjana, suggestion. It is not inference but suggestion which is inherent in it. Abhida does not come into the play because the second meaning is technically different. When the Vachakatva, that is statement of the words carrying different meanings, is centered on one particular meaning, for example, Rama plus Arjuna is equal to Parshurama. When you want to say Parshurama, you want to compare Rama and Arjuna, thereby you are trying to give some more information through the suggestive words, the allusion of the meaning other than Vachyartha. See, Rama, Arjuna are merely Vachyarthas. But when you say Parashurama equaling with Rama and Arjuna, then the meaning happens to be something suggestive, that is called Abhida Mula Vyanjana. Abhida means its direct meaning, and apart from that you want to convey some more thing, and thereby you are going to suggest something about the outcome. The word in which this Vyanjana process takes place is Vyanjaka. The other meaning which this Mukhya Shabda suggests is also Vyanjaka. Then Arti Vyanjana. The means employed in the process of conveying another meaning is known as Arti Vyanjana. These are, that is, suggestion caused out of Vakta, the speaker, Bodhya, the speech, Kaku, intonation. The Kaku is very, very important in the sense, Matnami Kauroshatam Samarena Kopat. Bhima says, will I not crush the hundreds of Kauravas in the battle? Actually, the sentence says, Matnami Kauroshatam Samarena Kopat. If you read it in a simple way, then it gives the meaning that I won't kill the Kauravas, 100 Kauravas in the battle. But by Kaku, Kaku means the intonation. You say, Patnami Kauroshatam Samarena Kopat. So that sound you extend happens to be giving a different meaning. That is called Kaku. That is very, very important. Based on that only, he says, sometimes even in English, when we are conversing with other people, we say, how is your health? Then it gives that whether your health is okay or not. Then, how is your health? That means, will I disturb your health? There is a meaning also attached to it. So, when you are actually raising your voice and making different types of intonations, that gives different meaning. It is available in each and every language. Then, Vakya, sentence, Vachyartha, and Anya Sannidhi, presence of others, Prastava, statement, Desha, place, Kala, time, Cheshta, gestures. So, based on that, you get the suggestive ideas. Then, coming to Dosha, the defect in a poetry, blemish in a poetry. Dosha is that with the presence of which the Mukhyartha, see, generally when we say Mukhyartha, the important meaning, we always attach that to Raza, the experience that one gets out of reading a text. So that is called Mukhyartha. So that Mukhyartha becomes degraded when a poetry contains lot of blemishes. Rasa is the primary meaning, that's why we said Mukhyartha. Being dependent on it, the degradation of decorative Vachyartha would also affect the former. Simply what happens sometimes, there is a verbal jugglery. We simply narrate with a lot of sentences which may rhyme, which may have some sort of alliteration, etc. Ultimately, foregoing the primary meaning rasa. So, to remove all these things, you will have to take enough steps. A poet should take enough steps. That's why the dosha, that is also called as dosha, so the dosha has to be removed for a good poetry. It is through Shabda that the rasa and Vachyartha become comprehensible. Dosha occurs through Shabda also. This is Pada dosha. How Shruti Katu, which is jarring to the ear. Sometimes you use the word which may not be interesting, at the same time you will feel irksome by hearing the sound. And Chuta Samskara, so ungrammatical. So you use sentences which do not have any grammatical base. Then Aprayukta, we use a word which is not used by anybody at all. Maybe right, but in poetry, it is always said that if the earlier poets have not used the word, we are not expected to use in the sense, we do not know in what meaning they have been speaking in those days. So, simply seeing the dictionary meaning without knowing the contextual application, then it becomes wrong. That's why Aprayukta, the words that were not used earlier should not be used. And Asamartha, not forceful enough to express the meaning. You will be telling this word, that word, and as a matter of fact, you will say, and what I am trying to say, what I mean, these are all the words through which you convey your ineffectiveness of conveying the meaning. The same thing, that is also a dosha. And Nihatartha, through Vachaka for two meanings, used only in the rare sense. See, you use a word, but that particular word might have been used in a rare sense. That rare sense should not be used in all contexts. So, where it is required appropriately, you will have to use. And Anuchitartha, that is inappropriate words. Nirartaka, nonsense words, which it doesn't give any meaning at all. Then Avachaka, the intended meaning is not expressed through Vachaka. You say something, but what your intention has not come out. Now, Aslila, that is vulgar words. There are three types which we are not going to deal with that today. And Sandigdha, ambiguous. You have a lot of doubts with regard to the words used there. Actually, what does it mean? We get confused. So, such words are Sandigdha, that is also a dosha, a defect. Now, Apratita, technical words used otherwise. See, in technical subjects, there may be some technical words used there, and if you are applying it in all other places, then that may not have exact meaning there. So, that is also something to be avoided. There is a defect. Then Gramya, uncivilized ways, or otherwise we can say it is a slang. That is also a defect. Neyartha, word based and samasa based. That is, samasa means compound based words. Always you are making use of words, compounded words, which doesn't give the meaning exactly there. Then Krishta, meaning deduced with difficulty. So you will have to understand what it is. Oh, he says like this. Oh, through this word he is trying to convey this. Like that, if you are trying to infer the meaning with your hard effort, that is also a defect. Hair splitting words, we say. Then Avamrishta, Videyamsha, not prominently indicated. Then Viruddha, giving opposite meaning. Sometimes the people use the Viruddha which gives the opposite meaning without knowing that it gives the opposite meaning. That is also a defect. Just like the characteristics as courage, etc., for the inner being, the inevitable glorification of rasa, soul of Kavya, is guna. So that is a quality. Gunas are three: madhurya, ojas, and prasada. That which promotes the liquefaction, that means the melting of the mind and the pleasure of evoking the sense of Sringara, is madhurya. So this madhurya is to be used when you are dealing with Sringara or the erotic or something romantic. Though mainly in Sambhoga Sringara, it becomes attractive in Karuna. So in Sambhoga Sringara it is used, but the melting aspect is more effective when you are explaining it in Karuna Rasa, that is when you are dealing with the compassion. In Vipralamba and Shanta, this is suitable. Vipralamba means it is love in separation. Shanta is living in peace. The glow that causes the enlargement of the heart in Veera is ojas. Ojaha samasa bhuishtam. That's what people say. The virulence of the word comes out of the combination of many sweet sounding words. That is called ojas. Its abundance in bibhatsa and raudra also produces special grace. Prasada, like fire, prasada is another guna, a quality in a poetry. It is like a fire on dried fuel. That means normally spreads in the heart and permeates all rasas. Though primarily guna is the dharma of rasa, in a secondary aspect, its presence is accepted in shabda and artha. The Vyanjaka factor of the expression of the three gunas are varna, syllable, words, samasa, that is compound, and rachana, construction, vakyas, etc., are the guna. Then the angirasa is the main rasa, that is angirasa means the main rasa, because in a kavya you have a main rasa supported by many other rasas also. We know pretty well, we have already seen in other modules, Sringara, Hasya, Karuna, Veera, Raudra, Bhayanaka, Bibhatsa, Adbhuta, and ultimately there is one Shanta also. So these are all the rasas in which whichever you take it as prominent, that is in different contexts, in different situations, other rasas also play the role. The main role happens to be for the main rasa. That is called angirasa. That angirasa, the kavya contains is developed through the angas of shabda and artha. The shabdalankara and arthalankara. We have already dealt with it in other modules about shabdalankara and arthalankara, the embellishments made through words and meanings, which ornate as a garland does for the body. Then rasa also we have already dealt with, but Mamata has a special inclination to deal with rasa. That which is the cause, effect and auxiliaries for Sthayi Bhava in ordinary life, when used in Kavya or Nataka or Vibhavas, Anubhavas and Vibhichari Bhavas in the respective order. These Vibhavas of Alambana and Uddipana, when combined with the cause, effect and auxiliaries, manifest the Sthayi Bhava, that is the rasa. Then there are different types of vadas. How the rasa is created and how the scholars have dealt with that subject, how the rasa created, etc. We have already seen in other modules when we talked about 8 schools of Alankara. However, with regard to Mamata also, we will have to see, because we have already said Mamata has codified many things in his work. Even in the earlier texts, there were many things, and schools were discussed in Bharata's Natya Shastra also. And now Mamata happens to be the author who came later, who wanted to just remind us more clearly what is what with regard to rasa and the utpatti. From vibhavas, the cause of the alambana and uddipana of rasa, there is woman, alambana bhava, and garden, uddipana bhava, the sthayi bhava, rati, is generated. Rati means here the love aspect. Its sprouting is made perceptible through the anubhavas of, that is the effect of eye movements and throwing of hands, and developed through the auxiliary aspects of Vyabhichari bhava like Nirveda. That's why the sprouting, utpatti, he has named it as utpatti based on the word the sprouting of such rasa. That which primarily appears in the imitated Rama, the Nata, who imitates them, superimposed on him, is the rasa. Then Anumitivada. See, Anumitivada means that is based on the Anumana school, which we have dealt with in earlier modules. Anumana is inference in an object subjected to direct perception. Another object may appear to be present, as explained in the Chitradurga Nyaya. Chitradurga Nyaya. This perception has got varied aspects. Seeing the Nata on the stage, spectator assumes he is Rama himself. That is Samyak Pratiti. He is not Rama. This is called Mithya Pratiti. Is he Rama? Then the Samasyatmaka Pratiti, that is doubtful aspect of it. He is like Rama, Sadrisha Pratiti. So, these are all things which had been dealt with by Mamata elaborately in his work. Then in the Anumitivada, there is also a fifth perception, that is Anumiti, which intrinsically stands separate from the first four perceptions, and the very same is the impression that the mind assumes on seeing the picture of a horse. Though artificial, the process of assumption is natural. The vibhavas are actually created ones. The mind through Anumiti accepts them as correct for the Nata as well as the spectator or listener of Kafya. Rasa is the experience of such a cultivated, cultured mindset. Then Bhuktivada. It is believed that Patanayaka's Bhuktivada is based on Sankhya Yoga. Sukha, Dukkha, that is pleasure and pain, or the nature or the mind. It is not the dharma of the Atma. Purusha, having been connected to Antakarana, these are reflected in him. In the same manner, Samajika also experiences them. Samajika means that is spectators. Through the mediation of the actor, that is as imitator, the inference of rasa takes place and not its actual generation as such. But through the Abhida and Vakya and Vibhava in Natya, it is being experienced in the same manner as a spiritual aspirant during his period of sadhana gets glimpse of anubhuti, that is the personal anubhava. He consumes it, and this is in short the concept of bhukti. The consumption, that is why it is bhukti. Vibhavana is the process through which sthayi bhavas are made enjoyable. Anubhava tends to create mental vibrations in the process of enjoyment, and Vyabhicharana is the process of transferring this throughout the body. In Kavya and Nataka, the cause and effect ingredients are ignored by the Sahridaya and he adopts Vibhavana. In such a mindset, the personal involvement becomes redundant. The experience is akin to the realization that it is his own Atmanubhava. Then Abhivyakti. Rasa remains as pure and free enjoyment itself. This is it by itself and not the effect of any extraneous factor. It ceases to exist on removal of the vibhava. It is also not known as the experience is completely a new one. Rasa is thus not an effect, nor is it knowledgeable. It is quite transcendental. The absolute sense, though presents itself of having come to stay through vibhavas, it is not nirvikalpa, as vibhavas are unavoidable ingredients. It is not savikalpa because it corresponds to the unworldly ananda stage. It is safe to conclude that it is an unknown experience. Each one has got his own experience. Now we shall see the plays of Sahitya Darpana of Vishwanatha, who wrote it in 1325 to 1390 AD. Sahitya Darpana means what? There is the mirror of composition. The author happens to be Vishwanatha, as I told you earlier. He was not just prolific, he was equally versatile. Apart from studying and researching aesthetics, he created a number of literary works in all the branches of literature: poetry, prose, criticism, and drama. Some of his major works include Chandrakala Natika, Prabhavati Parinaya, Raghava Vilasa, Raghava Vilapa, Kuvalayasva Charita, Prashasti Ratnavali, Narasimha Vijaya, Kavya Prakasha, Darpana, etc. He attained the title Kaviraja also. He takes pleasure in describing himself as Kaviraja, and that as be at the lotus feet of the divine Narayana. The pilot in the ocean of composition, the best of guides on the road to ingenious poetic suggestion, the jewel mine of poetic utterance, the lover of that nymph dwelling in the 18 languages employed in dramatic composition. He is a minister in the department of peace and war. That's what he claims. His son Anantadasa also wrote commentaries and notes on Sahitya Darpana. This Sahitya Darpana, the mirror of composition, is most famous work and arguably one of the most comprehensive works in Indian aesthetics. This work is on the pattern of Mammata's Kavya Prakasha, as I told you even at the beginning. He was perhaps inspired to write Sahitya Darpana after he had written a commentary on Mammata's Kavya Prakasha. Now let us see what are the contents of Sahitya Darpana. Sahitya Darpana has 10 chapters. In the first chapter, it defines poetry. In the second chapter, it defines what a sentence or composition is. It analyzes 3 powers of words, Sabda Shakti. In the third, and one of the most important, it defines rasa, discusses rasa, and makes a new approach to its realization. The fourth chapter deals with Dwani, and the fifth explains elaborately the suggestive power of the word. The sixth deals with dramaturgy and elucidates the varieties of Drishya Kavyas, Natakas. The seventh gives a long list of blemishes, that is doshas, in Kavya. He is the one who has exhaustively dealt with the defects in poetry as well as the merits in poetry. The eighth deals with the merits and or excellence in the Kavya. The ninth dwells on Riti, that is style, and the 10th lists poetic embellishments, alankaras, with illustrations from a number of Kavyas and dramas. The work has at least 5 commentaries on it. Though Vishwanatha molds the structure of his Sahitya Darpana on the lines of Mammata's Kavya Prakasha, he differs radically from the later in his definition of Kavya. He declares a sentence with a rasa as its soul is Kavya. Vakyam rasatmakam Kavyam. He defines relish as follows: it is pleasure, no doubt, but not the sort of pleasure which is felt by one which gratifies the intelligence. It is a particular kind of pleasure. It is passion or emotion, love or sorrow, wonder or even disgust, or it may be pure and passionless joy, and excited by ordinary causes, but delightfully suggested by a representation of which it causes, effects, and concomitant mental and bodily states in life are. The work belongs to Dhwani school founded by Anandavardhana and is severe on the critics of Dhwani, particularly the Mahima Bhatta. Sahitya Darpana is different from earlier works in aesthetics. This work for the first time combined in one treatise both the Shravya aspect, that is poetical aspect, and Drisya aspect, dramatical aspects, because in earlier texts you will find more elaboration on dramatics and rarely we come across the compositions that is Shravya Kavyas. Perhaps Vishwanatha thought that both are to be combined in a particular work of poetics, and therefore he inducted both the poetical aspects in dramas as well as in a kavya. Before Vishwanatha, aestheticians had confined themselves largely to the aspect they often referred to the other. Further, while earlier writers on the subject had by and large confined themselves to their own school of thought, only referring intermittently, if at all, to other schools, Vishwanatha in his Sahitya Darpana explicitly discussed all schools and thoughts of Indian aesthetics before arguing the superiority of the Dhwani school. There too, Vishwanatha does not agree with the equal importance given to three types of Dhwani as classified by 9th century Kashmirian aesthetician Anandavardhana, that is Vastu Dhwani, Alankara Dhwani, Rasa Dhwani. These three schools, and three Dhwanis are given importance, but Vishwanatha differs in his opinion that he doesn't want to give the equal importance to all the three schools, three Dhwanis, and finally he gives importance only to the Rasa aspect of it. Vishwanatha concludes that Rasa Dhwani is what defines poetry. Then Sahitya Darpana's definition of poetry: Vakyam Rasatmakam Kavyam, any composition which gives tasteful pleasure is poetry, has been cited most frequently by modern critics while defining poetry. Rasa is a complex concept used in Sanskrit aesthetics from 1st century onwards. Taking exception to Mamata's definition that Kavya must be Shabda and Artha without dosha and possessing guna and decorated with alankaras, Vishwanatha says that there is no harm if in any place alankara is inadequate or missing. As regards blemishes, he says it is impossible to keep away doshas, defects. Sometimes it automatically creeps in, even in great poets. So you can't avoid that also. So it doesn't undermine the composition. Dosha in a minimal way will not render the profound qualities of a kavya. Otherwise, according to Sahitya Darpana, the stipulation in the definition Sabdartau Sagunau is also not fully correct. Guna is in Rasa and not in Sabdartha, according to Kavya Prakasha. Sagunau Sabdartau means only that guna would add to the beauty and not that it would contribute to the characteristics of Kavya. Regarding Alankara, Sahitya Darpana views that even if the Alankara is asputa, that is unclear, it would not affect the characteristics of Kavya. Anandavardhana's Dhwani is the sole factor, is classified as Vastu, Alankara and Rasa. But in Prahelika, there is Vastu Dhwani, but it is not a Kavya. That's what Vishwanatha argues. There is no harm in accepting Rasa Dhwani alone as the soul of Kavya. The concept of Riti is the soul of Kavya, according to Vamana, and this also he differs, in this aspect also he differs. He says Vamana is not correct. Riti is merely the style of construction which corresponds to the arrangements of organs of the body and not the life aspect. Atma is different from the body. Artha, that is meaning, has two phases, Vachya and Pratiyamana. To say that Vachya also constitutes the Atma is contradictory in itself. Then what is the correct definition of Kavya? It is Lakshana of Kavya. Vakyam Rasatmakam Kavyam. That's what he again stresses. Guna, Alankara and Riti are the factors which develop Rasa. While dealing with the purpose of Kavya, Sahitya views that even the less intelligent ones too get easily the purpose of the Purusharthas through Kavya. Sukad alpadhiyamapi Kavya deva itastena tat swarupam nigaddhite. That's what he says. Kavya gives instruction that we should get ourselves engaged in good deeds like Rama and avoid vicious actions as Ravana used to do, and it also shows the ways to practice them. It is also said that by learning Kavya we achieve the Purusharthas, as also get proficient in arts like Nritya and music. Fame and pleasure to the heart are the other benefits. Kavya adores the glories of God. It paves the way for Dharma. A word that it understood and used properly is Kamadhenu. In this world as also in heavens. That's what he says. If a word is understood clearly, then it covers all the things wanted, like Kamadhenu. Those who make Kavya get Artha from the kings and others. That is wealth from others. Artha brings Kama. By renouncing the benefit derived from Dharma, moksha is attained. That is his concept. While dealing with Padya, that is the poem, Sahitya Darpana defines Muktaka as a verse that has a self-contained meaning and stands detached from other verses. That is called Muktaka. When the Vakya is in two slokas, it is Yugmaka. Of course, Dandi also has got certain divisions like this. Those with three or Saddhanika or Visheshaka, with four verses, Kalpaka, and more than four, it is Kulaka. Sahitya Darpana defines a Mahakavya thus: those which are divided into Sargas are Mahakavyas. Devas or those of noble birth would be the hero of Kavya. There are also Kavyas with more than one hero. The Angirasa would be Sringara, Karuna or Shanta. That is the dominant rasa. Should be either Sringara, Karuna or Shanta. The other rasas are also brought in as Anga, secondary aspect. The Sandhi arrangements should be strictly followed. The story may be from Itihasa or those from noble traditions. The consummation should stress on Purushartha, that is Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Kavya should begin with invocation or indication of the subject. The sarga should not be less than 8 in number. Each sarga should be in a particular vritta, that is a meter. The following objects or situations should be described in detail: dawn and dusk, sun, moon, daytime, night, darkness, hunting, hills, seasons, forest, ocean, meeting of lovers and their separation also. According to Sahitya Darpana, the Vakyas, that is the word combinations, should be chosen in such a way that the aspect of Alankara, Akanksha, prevails. That is, anxiety for the next word is retained at each stage. That's what we say, it's a question of inquiry. In the sense, when you write something, you say, he came. See, if you happen to write a small story, I am just telling you certain hints based on Vishwanatha. He says, what you should do? You should say only, he came. Who came is the next question. That question of inquiry should be there. Then you can say Rama came. Then there is another question. Rama came from where? Okay, from the forest or from this town, like that. So at every stage there should be a question of inquiry. That's what it means. So the word combination should be graceful. The objects presented according to context should have a continuity. Then Sahitya Darpana has often been criticized as being more a compilation than an original work. However, even its harshest critics agree that it is the most comprehensive work on the subject. Many also particularly point to the lucid style of Sahitya Darpana as one of the prime reasons for its popularity. We came to know about the importance of both Mammata and Vishwanatha, who happen to be the authors of Kavya Prakasha and Sahitya Darpana respectively. And the very importance is that both of them happen to have sometimes condensed certain aspects of poetry, sometimes elaborated certain aspects which are needed for the readers. And both of them have described about the doshas, that is defects in poetry, gunas, the merits in poetry, and they have classified the important aspects such as the purpose of kavya, that is purpose of composition, the benefits of composition, and the importance of composition, and the need for the composition, etc. And thus, at the later stage, both of them helped the literary critics as well as either the spectator or the readers to enjoy either the poetry or a drama with the sense of enjoying the pleasure, that is rasa. The quintessence of rasa, or the main purpose for which we are reading or visualizing a thing in poetry, is given by them and pointed out by them. And they have argued the different schools of poetry also, and they have given their own opinion, which happen to be admirable. If you have any doubt, or if you have some more explanation, if you want some more explanations, you can go to the e-book prepared by our ePathashala. Thank you.